This is my guide for installing the crafted mouse Finalbase. It's a 3D printing base with some parts to allow you to use a Finalmouse magnesium metal top shell and Razer Viper V2 Pro internals. So you'll be able to use 4000Hz with your mouse. It'll be a really high-end mouse and it'll feel awesome. The base is pretty flush, so you'll be able to fit different kinds of skates, from glass to anything really, because it's pretty flat. I've also made a Google Doc guide, so if you get a bit lost you can also look there. I'll be linked in the description below. It has a little quick tutorial of taking apart the Razer Viper V2 Pro, as I won't be showing that. There's also a link to Bearded Bob's channel, where they do a Razer Viper V2 Pro teardown, so I recommend following that if you're taking apart your Razer V2. It also has a table of contents that tells you everything that I've detailed inside the guide. You can also use the side to skip between parts. It tells you all the tools that you need for doing the mod. It's just a very detailed guide to help you through every stage of the process. But yeah, I recommend following that guide if you're a bit lost on what to do, or if I'm moving a bit too fast in the video. The link to the guide will be in the description below. If you just click there, you'll find it. For doing the Finalbase mod from Crafted Mice, you need a few tools. If you're taking apart your Razer Viper V2 Pro, then you'll need a Torx T6 screwdriver bit, and then for taking apart the Finalmouse base, you need a Torx T5, and then for everything else you can use the general Phillips cross screwdriver bit. I recommend maybe having like an iFixit kit or some kind of screwdriver bit set. You also need some side cutters because you need to cut one part of the mouse. There's a metal piece that will impact the scroll wheel of the Razer Viper V2 Pro PCB. You'll need to cut that with some side cutters. You'll also need some tweezers. Needle nose will be best, or something sharp. This can be useful for taking off the skates off the mouse, also for holding small things. You'll want a flat plastic tool to remove the battery from the Razer Viper V2 Pro, because you don't want anything sharp, because you don't want to puncture the battery and cause a fire or something like that. The first thing we need to do is remove the skates from the Finalmouse base. You can remove the skates using a flat plastic tool or tweezers. You can even use a fingernail to slightly push the skates, as they can be reusable and easy to slide off. Removing the skates at the bottom of the mouse next to the label will allow us access to the two screws that secure the base. You can remove these screws with a Torx T5 screw bit and then carefully slide the top off. Watch what you're doing with the scroll wheel and then it should be pretty easy. If the side buttons don't fall out when you take off the shell, just give them a little push and they should just pop out. There's one modification that you need to do to the Finalmouse top shell to fit the Razer Viper V2 PCB, because the top shell has a metal piece that will interfere with the scroll wheel button, so you need to cut this with side cutters as shown here, and then the mouse where it has been modified so you can see. Once you've modified the top shell of the Finalmouse, you should get the Viper V2 internals ready. This should be side buttons, PCB, scroll wheel, and two screws. The screws should be general Phillips cross. When you get your crafted mouse Finalbase, you should make sure that you have everything in it. It comes in this little container, you just pop it off. 3 of these switch shoes per switch, because each Starlight has a different click height variance. I need to find the right one to get the right click. You need to experiment with these and one of the next steps. You also get a key for turning the mouse on and off, 2 base screws and some skates. You also get some aluminum tape for pre-travel and some 3M tape for a battery. Now if you're sure you have all the pieces, just put in the scroll wheel to the PCB, add a coloured silicone ring if you got this upgrade. Line up the PCB to the center pillar. There's a piece you should line up. Drop it in carefully, being careful of the scroll wheel. The 2 screw holes should line up. Now with each Starlight there's a difference in click variance or click length. The switch shoes come in different thicknesses. You just have to go from the thinnest to the biggest until you find the right one. This is the switch shoe on the left click. It has more material because it also is the side button attachment. You attach it with the same screws as the PCB. You can adjust the screw to adjust different clicks. The closer the switch shoe is to the switch, the better the click, and do it on both sides. I recommend reading the guide in the link below and skipping to the switch part, as I'm not good at explaining it that well. You can also use some aluminium tape to adjust the pre-travel. Once you think you have the correct switch shoes, you should try putting the shell on by hooking the front hooks onto the metal shell. It's easier if you're coming at an angle like this. Don't screw the base right now, as you need to take it apart and test the switches each time. Here's me testing the switches, as you can hear. This is what the switches should kinda sound like. Now if you've tested the switches and you feel that you've got them right, you should take the base off and then move on to the next step. Now you can move on to installing the side buttons, just pushing the ribbon cable very carefully, and then attach the side buttons to the left click and then the pillar. Now you can attach the battery. I attached it way earlier, but use the 3M tape that's included. This little connector you plug into the board. Now we can add the side buttons to the top shell. If you have troubles with it falling out, you can try taping it in place like this. You can also attach some aluminium tape to the little cross piece to adjust pre-travel. This is what the side buttons look like, and here is with some aluminium tape on the little cross piece to adjust the P-travel. Now we can finally attach the Finalbase by using these two 3D printed hooks. If you bring it in at an angle like this, and then hook it on, just watch it for the scroll wheel, and now you can screw the base on. It might look a little loose at first, but you just have to pull it back and make sure the hooks are attached. You would use a cross screwdriver for this. Now that you've completed the Finalbase mod, you just attach whatever skates you like, and it's ready to use, and then you can use the little key tool to turn the mouse on and off and change DPI modes. If you want to use 4000Hz, you need to have the Razer HyperPolling Dongle. Now I'd like to say thanks to Crafted Mice for sending me out this mod. I got to borrow their Finalmouse. He also sent me out my own grey base if I want to do my TenZ medium, and I might also be getting a small base. If you liked the video, then consider subscribing and giving this video a like. It'll help me out a lot. If you look in the video description, you'll find a link to the guide, so if you missed anything on the video or you're a bit confused, it might help you out. Thanks a lot for watching. I hope you enjoyed it.